So it looks like we're officially live. I see all of the buttons looking like, yes, you are ready to flow along in public with the whoever's watching on here. But I'm just grateful that, Chato, you took the time all the way from Nebraska and your busy work day to hang out with me here, Rosana Alvarez. And I know folks are going to be a little bit confused looking at this through my Hella Chingona page, being like, is Chato a chingona? And I'm like, you know what? He makes it easy to stay chingona because, I think part of what we're trying to do here is also connect to pretty solid folks, right? And if it were just the chingonas hyping ourselves up and hyping ourselves up, we'd still be really frustrated. So thanks for being a solid person out in the world and for taking some time to play today and log on and share a little bit about yourself in a way that's a little outside of your public comfort zone, and just share some poetry, some spoken word, some writing, a little bit about your process, and just hanging out, right? It is National Poetry Month, and it's important for people to see that everyday people write. We don't have to have this glamorous life. We don't have to have a writing retreat. That's some nice shit to have, but we're doing it by any means necessary.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Thank you, Rosana, for the invitation. We've done this, like you mentioned earlier, like we've done this a couple times more. Inviting me out to the class to share a little bit and of what's going on. Nowadays there's a lot of the Facebook Live. Let's do this, and it's kind of cool. So I appreciate it. And I posted earlier when I was kind of letting people on my social media know, I'm like, hey, I'm not a poet, but I'm just going to share some lines. So, yeah, I think it's really important. My profession is now I can say licensed independent clinical social worker as of like last week. So, it's taken a long time to get to that point, and a part of that is I do therapy with children and families and kids, and a big part of the healing and therapy that I do is storytelling, and I think that's a big part of our culture too, right? Is our stories that we tell via verbal or whether it be written. So we're very, como se dice, we're storytellers. We have a lot to express, and whether it's art, poetry, flow, dance, whatever it may be, it's beautiful. And so definitely honored to be able to share a few words today. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I know you were like, well, what am I going to share? What am I going to put out there, right? But I think this is part of why I value having conversation with you. Opportunities have gotten less over time, but we share danza space together. We've been in ceremonia together, and a lot of what folks are disconnected to when it comes to our writing is that it's not even about the writing in the poetry per se, but how we live our lives, right? And I think I'm one of those folks who's like, I'm always looking for signs, right? How is life speaking back to me? And I think I've asked a few folks, hey, you want to play along? And everybody's like, yeah. And you were one of the yeahs and one of the ones that just, let's get it done, right? Let's get it done. And so just sharing a little bit about your poetry isn't separate, it's not the separate part of who you are. It's almost like a way of going about writing down what we're experiencing, right? Like translating it into a written flow.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I know I was like, you're going to share some poetry. We're not going to make this like a hella hardcore platica presentation, but it's us hanging out. And I know we've talked about living room poets before, but this is the closest we're going to get right now.
For sure.
If you're ready to throw down a piece, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, this is a piece I wrote when I was in grad school. So this has to be a good 8 years old. Pretty relevant to what's going on, and we'll just let it flow. So it's entitled Register Number 5. No bags or backpacks allowed. And although I blindly walked by, I refused to leave my bag unattended at register number 5. You say store policy, says so on the sign and for the safety of the customer, but at what cost? Humiliation, criminalization, stereotyping, and profiling? How about discrimination? This is a pretty fucked up situation. I know a grandma who walks with a cane and doesn't drive. She carries a big bag enough to fit a head of lettuce, some carrots, and an apple pie. Would you profile her as a thief? Cause her some grief? Or how about the pregnant woman? She comes in with her two kids, 2 and 4 years old, has a backpack because she just never knows, carries some diapers and a change of clothes, some wipes and a couple of toys, all in the backpack because it's easier to control. Mr. Officer, you are partially correct. As you stand there, hand on gun, I am indeed a threat, but not because I have a gun or knife or cheat or steal. I'm a threat because I use my mind. I read a few books and I learned a few words, and now I know your rhetoric. I use my voice to shoot down unfair practices like spears piercing flesh. I condemn profiling and discrimination based on income, which hasn't changed over the years. So in reality, it equates to racism. I stand up for what is right, and I'm not afraid. Because an inconsistent policy that allows for profiling and targeting is bigger than me and you. Because every day there are brown men and women sitting in a cell, a boy who doesn't go to school, a man who injects a foreign substance, a young girl who was raped and blamed and made to feel shame, a father who gets paid less than minimum wage because he's undocumented, a teen who is suspended for something he didn't do, all because of people like you. And I won't forget about the man in the suit who only cares about his profit, not about his policies or rules or how they impact the economically deprived. And although I was only 10, I'll never forget when the cops handcuffed my father, made him kneel on the ground, profiled, but he held his head strong. He had no shame because he did no wrong. Everyone saw, but no one said anything. What could I do? I was just a kid, but not anymore. There is a psychosocial construct when systems promote hate. The environment is diluted of compassion and love when people are subjected to feel less because of the way they look or where they live. They say a person is a product of his own experiences and how he perceives these experiences. So I am indeed a threat because I will teach others not to feel less, that it is not okay to be discriminated or incriminated, that profiling is wrong. We will demystify the stereotypes that hold our hearts hostage. And although I don't support Cesar 100%, I will learn from his mistakes and do my best to be better. I will remember what he said, though. Once social change begins, it cannot be reversed. You cannot uneducate the person who has learned to read. You cannot humiliate the person who feels pride. You cannot oppress the people who are not afraid anymore. We have seen the future, and the future is ours. So fuck register number 5.
Fuck register number 5, indeed. That one always hits hard. It hits hard, and I've seen it morph throughout time a little bit in subtle ways, right? And
Yeah.
that one hit me so hard that I think stand number 5 made a cameo in one of my poems somewhere, because it was just that ripple, right? That ripple of what it activates in our collective story. But I know you've got a little bit more to say about that, the process or the after the story.
Yeah, it's a trip, like just reading it too, it just like brings up emotion. Because this was years ago. And I had just come from, I was in grad school. I was wearing a Palabra hoodie of all things, right? Like a Palabra hoodie that's all kind of baggy. And I was going into this grocery store here in Nebraska. It's called Nuestra Familia. And, it's kind of in a rough neighborhood. So I had just come from meeting with a state legislator to talk about education. And so here I am meeting a friend who was in the grocery store. And as I walk in, I have my backpack because I had just left the university. I was at a meeting, and I had my Apple laptop, which is something that I didn't want to leave in my car in that particular neighborhood. And it was kind of late at night. It was dark. And so I walked in with my backpack on. And as soon as I walked through the door, this cop comes up to me and just like comes at me and says, "Hey, you can't be in here with that backpack." And it was just kind of like caught me off guard. Like, well, what's going on? Like, I'm, you know, like, what do you mean I can't be here with this backpack? I don't even have anything in it. I have a laptop. So, but we kept going back and forth, and the cop was had his hand on the gun, like, and was just like, "Hey, you need to put it at register number 5." And I asked him, "Is there someone that's going to be watching my backpack, or what? What's going on? Is there?" And he just kept insisting, "Put it at register number 5. Look, man, stop making a scene. Put it at register number 5." And I looked around, and it was kind of a scene. People were watching, and I'm like, "Well, what about that lady? She has a big old bag. Did you go up to her and harass her, or what?" So it became this big old deal. And finally, what he said was, "Go to the customer service. You can go over there and talk to the customer service people." And I said, "Okay, that's fine. I'll go and do that." But he said, "But leave your backpack at register number 5. And so then when he, that was it. Like, I could feel my body, like when you're so upset that you're trembling. And so I was lucky enough that I was able to catch myself, and I knew that I couldn't be there, so I just left because I was getting to the point where something bad probably would have happened. I wasn't imagining that I would have been shot, but getting arrested for sure. In hindsight, it could have gotten to some point like that, but it was just like a trip, and I reached out to the manager and to the district manager, and we even made like a whole like video back in the day. I mean, there was no like YouTube, or I don't know. We somehow, some app I used, and made a little short video and was promoting it. And I got a call from the grocery store, and they said they were thanking me. I don't know who it was, but I remember them thanking me and saying, because of what I had protested against, they were going to get rid of that policy because it was a policy that was not a good policy. They had wanted me to come in and, and I don't know what they were going to do, but it was like, fuck, I'm never stepping in there again. I don't want to go there. Like, I don't want you to like come and shake my hand and say thank you and this and that and give me a gift certificate. It was just like, no, fuck you. So yeah, and I feel like a lot of that, it just resonates with a lot of stuff that's just happened, that was seen. So.
And you said, I wasn't expecting to get shot. Well, this is kind of a lead up, and it's like that susto in some ways. And past that, I think the relatable part for me about the injustice of check stand number 5 is we know damn well that situation could have gone a number of ways, and a lot of times it has to do with perception, and then we think of the collective indignity, right? And it's like, well, check stand number 5 maybe got resolved for you moving forward in that particular place and with you, but there isn't a resolution, and there wasn't, like, for me, I still think, what about all the other stores with the check stand number 5 equivalent, because they're out there? What about everybody it took to go through that sense of indignity to have their check stand number 5, right? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like your poetry in that way, it's like a recording, right? Injustice, it's kind of like for me, I always feel like it's an adjustment. Like when you go and get your back adjusted at the chiropractor, right? It's like, it's not going to fix the thing and see, but it does help, like, documenting that pain in the collective healing.
Yeah, for sure. Totally. Yeah. I mean, this was years ago, and I always go back to it, and it's so relevant. And just reading it right now, right? It just, I can feel the tears wanting to come out, like just like the coraje, the anger, and just, and I've updated this poem a little bit throughout the years, little tweaks and whatnot. And so, but for the most part, it's still the same.
And there's a check stand number 5 incident going on right now somewhere, right? And the rest of us have a choice. We can just stand by and let it be, or have our check stand number 5 fuck you moment. So that one's always going to hit. It's always going to hit. And it's going to hit in a different way depending on what's going on collectively. But I know you know, we can talk about check stand number 5 all day, especially with the work that you do in your day job. But you want to share the next one?
Yeah, this is a newer one. Um, and it kind of, and I'll just read it. It's called La Virgen is Not My Mother. Um, they say La Llorona cried because she murdered her children. They say que los ahogó, that she drowned them. But I believe a different story. I believe that the unholy Spanish conquistador maliciously tried to rape her. Venerably, she defended her dignidad until the devil suffocated her children right before her eyes, then violated her and blamed her for the demise. They say that she sobs for her lifeless children, but I think she also cries for you and me. Mis hijos, what will become of them? In a world that takes and takes, where man takes and rapes women, identity, culture, life, the land, all the same. She cried and cries for the present day. ¿Dónde están los guerreros? The ones, the ones from Cuauhtémoc's vision, the ones that will help illuminate the way. Where are they? Who will advocate? Who will speak up? Where is the humility, sincerity? It's not about you, it's about us. Just because your skin is brown, that don't automatically mean that you are down. Stand with honor, do your best. Don't forget about the rest. No more children in cages, no more missing and murdered women, no more murdered people of color by police, no more health disparities, no more slave wages, no more self-hatred, no more self-medication, no more fake policies, no more racist, no more misrepresentation, no more systematic oppression, no more. Ya no llores, madrecita. So that's my La Virgen is Not My Mother poem.
And that's a strong one from another perspective. And I think part of what being a poet is in the everyday is like, you know, everybody thinks poems are supposed to make you feel nice and think about nature and all of that. And I think I had this conversation with Elodia right when we had our live stream, and we were like, there's something about when you come in with a poem and it hits different from the way even you put a title on it or the way it titles itself sometimes. And this one jabs at layers of, you know, I could see how people would be like, que escándalo, como que no es tu madre, right? And but what you're talking about in the poem is it calls for it. So I'm always curious about the everyday story behind the thing itself, right? Because for me, poems sometimes write themselves, and sometimes it's me trying to make sense of collective untangling of shit that just keeps bugging me. So that one, what, if you don't mind sharing, like, what was your process for it? Like, and it can be your process beyond this particular poem, right? Like, how does writing come to you?
Yeah.
I think there's a distinction. Like, you got poems, people who call themselves poets and are acknowledged poets, and they've got their 5 published books to be like, I'm a poet and writer. And then there are folks like us who it's more of an ofrenda and it's interwoven into who we are. So
Yeah. And I think for me, I think it's that expression, right? And the expression of like what we carry inside. And I think this like you said, there's layers to it, and there's it connects to fuck register number 5. I feel like a lot of my poetry is related to what's happening in society, what the experiences I've seen, I've gone through, and a lot of it is there's a lot of like pain, there's a lot of coraje, there's a lot of sadness sometimes, and it's like I think for me it's to be able to express it, the frustration too. And I think this poem, when I look at it, what it tries to what I'm trying to say is, I want people to kind of wake up, I guess, wake up to truths. Now, some people might say these are my truths, but I feel like we go blindly through a lot of history and the truths of history and who's telling the story, right? And we're being sometimes manipulated to believe certain things. And so that's what kind of this, and the whole idea of how people celebrate my culture, being told how to celebrate. And there's a lot there. There's a lot there. There's a lot regarding people who want to represent culture at the same time, but when it's like really like you're not representing the way it should be, like you're trying to steal the shine. You're trying to do it half-ass. You're walking two paths and you can't walk them both. So it's just like, it's a combination of it all. And I think because it's all like interconnected. I feel like, it's all interconnected. And we talk about like the rape culture and how that's a big deal nowadays. And it's always been a big deal, right? But now all of a sudden there's a lot of like, hey, well, at least we're seeing in this on social media, that there's more voice to it, at least correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like within the past year, there's more voice to it. But it's always been there. And like, this is stating that. And then, the masculine telling the story of what happened and minimization, right? And then disassociation. So there's a lot there. Yeah, there's a lot that just goes into this poem.
And that's why for me, I'm like, it feels like a relatable untangling, right? Like there's so much interwoven with who we are. There's so much tangled into in terms of the stuff we've inherited and the choices we're making for ourselves and how we negotiate that every day. And then we've got all these pieces of identity and markers of what cultura is supposed to be. And then we've started shifting into more culturally responsive practices. And we see, there's the good and there's the bad and there's the things to celebrate and there's the things that we are told we're supposed to support because it's our cultura. And I hear you kind of saying, well, hold on a second, right? Whose idea of cultura is that? And it reminds me of over the summer. Was it last year? Was it in the summer? I don't even remember. This whole pandemic is a blur, but we had that fuck your taco was kind of like this idea that, was it October?
Yeah.
Que estamos rezongando, right? Like a poem in some ways, it's me rezongando sin consecuencia. Like the consequence can stay trapped in my notebook. And I'm not waiting for somebody to respond to my poem. Although it's always nice when somebody does, whether it's good or bad, But for me, it's like there's some freedom in being able to rezongar all kinds of things at once when you're untangling shit for yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I like how you say that. That's true. Very, very much so.
And we can say symbolically, sometimes our poems are that fuck your taco equivalent, right? And people even hear that fuck your taco, like I love tacos, or they hear fuck your taco and it goes a totally different direction. That we'll save that conversation for later. But like things that we're supposed to, and I think that the poem can speak in a lot of ways against problematic shit of all of those supposed tos. And for me, like, I don't know if this is the case for you, but I know for me, it's my own damn liberation, and it's not attached to anybody else's expectations. And a lot of times, the writing kind of just takes care of itself.
Yeah.
If I'm listening. And I think that's a part of it. And I don't know if that's the case for you. Do you feel like sometimes your poems are like almost fully formed, or like it's like a struggle to hear them in formation, but you're like, where in the fuck did that come from?
Yeah. And like sometimes I feel like I rush through them. Like I'll throw them out and then it's like, well, I just did this within like 30 minutes, real quick. And it's like, do I need to go back and revise and change it up? And but it just flows. Like Like there's, you know what, something happened. I think I was watching like TV and La Guadalupana came on with the banda or something happened, right? And all these things that had triggered me. It wasn't even. There's just so many other things that had triggered where I was just kind of like, man. And I think at that time, like La Llorona, there was a new movie that was coming out, and it was like all that all at the same time, and it's like, man, and then I had heard kind of another story like this, right? When they talk about this story of La Llorona, and so I was like, well, let me just write because I'm feeling frustrated right now, and I felt good, right? Like I felt good, and I think that's why I don't write as often, but when I do, it's like, damn, I'm letting it all out, and I feel relief. I think that's the way I would describe it. I feel a sense of relief. Um, so it's pretty dope. Uh,
Yeah, that's the word that comes to mind for me too. It's the sense of alivio, right? Like relief doesn't quite capture it for me, but in Spanish somehow, even though it's supposed to mean the same thing, it
yeah,
feels like an alivio. And it reminds me of like protests, right? Protests, we talk about them as a lot of different things, but we in particular talk about them as a llanto, right? How protest is a llanto, and it's like this desahogo. And in some ways, the poems feel similar, right? Like they run parallel to that sense of alivio. There's a relief and a release and a like fuck, I can. It's not that you can live with the injustice of check stand number 5, but there's something about putting it on paper or into words that just and it's medicine, you know.
yeah, for sure.
But I know I said I wasn't going to keep you, all evening in Nebraska time, and I know that you were like, I'm going to read this short story and
Yeah,
I'm going to hear it. So I
yeah.
want
Let
to
me.
hear it time.
I got this other piece. So sometimes, I play around and I do little short stories, and they flow like poetry. So I guess that's just kind of like my style. Um, so yeah, my like I said earlier, my job is a mental health therapist, and sometimes I would do in-home support. So this is kind of and it's been changed a little bit because I'm not trying to put out client information and whatnot, but um, based off of one of many different types of experiences I've had. Uh, so this one is called Cristo Rey. Um, I had a 4 p.m. session with my client V in the home. V's mom has never invited me into their home for session before, but I don't mind it. They have moved around several times this year. The last place they lived was a garage that had been converted into a half-built studio apartment. V complained that the scurrying of mice would wake him up at night, so he was happy with their new place. I show up to the new apartment, a room they rent out of a house. Mother tells me that I can't park in the driveway porque no dejan, so I have to park down the street. As I walk up to the home, Mother is waiting outside with V and his younger brother. Mother is short in stature, and you can see in her eyes that she has only slept about 4 hours. She works overnight, so her daily functioning has been turned upside down, and that is how most of her life has been, upside down. She is from down south in rural Mexico, or maybe it's considered the jungle, la selva. Either way, her journey has been long, rocky, with bumps and holes that have plagued the way. Her ancestors suffered for almost 500 years, and now she carries the weight on her shoulders and on her face within the wrinkles of her skin. But she also carries 500 years of resiliency and strength. I show up, and Mother suggests that we go for a walk. Me, V, and Mother and younger bro begin to walk through the Willow Street neighborhood, just on the outskirts of downtown San Jose, a task that others would not even dare. We pass an altar, flowers and candles adorn the street corner. A guy was killed right there, little bro proclaims. I don't like to walk this way, V states. There is too much violence. You have to be careful. And as we walk, we can hear children play a schoolyard just a few feet away. A beautiful mural como guardián de hogar watches over the children, reminding the world of the beauty our culture holds, as families rent bedrooms instead of homes, apartments that go for $2,500 a month. Damn, I think to myself, what happened to the barrio? We walk and talk, and I tell mom of V's behavioral progress. Even though the school has complained about his behavior, they say, we can't teach when he is in class because he disrupts and interrupts the teacher's lecture. But I acknowledge his growth and tell mom I'm proud of him. We've been working together for 2 years now. We walk for a few blocks and mom asks, ¿Llevas prisa? Are you in a hurry? To which I say, no, not today. She says in a thoughtful manner, Vamos a comer. Let's go eat. And I say, okay. We continue to walk for several blocks, and V says, Ama, ¿a dónde vamos? Mom, where are we going? And mom sternly replies, Vamos a comer. We are going to eat. V looks at me with a surprised look and loudly states, You're going to eat with us? I smile, thinking nothing of it, and reply, Of course, why wouldn't I? I figure we're going to walk to a Mexican restaurant. Maybe we will get some tacos. In my mind, I plan to pay, as I have done it before with other families and other clients. To share a meal with someone is considered respectful and polite manners in our culture. We walk and talk, IEP, ADHD, med prescription, self-regulation. Ya está grande, tiene que aprender a controlarse sin pastilla. After much discourse, we arrive to our destination. And to my surprise, there is no taco stand. In fact, it is a church. There is a man at the entrance, and the fee to enter is accepting a dab of hand sanitizer as you walk by. We go through the doors and enter a gym cafeteria. I follow their lead, and as V and his family get in line for a tray of food, I glance around the room, and it's houseless people at every table. As we sit down, V devours the bland food, stating, It's so good, huh? And at this moment, my eyes begin to burn, but I hold back the tears. We eat, and I can tell they have been here before. A woman brings mom 2 gallons of milk and a bag of bread. V says, We come here every Tuesday and Wednesday. Little bro hasn't touched his food as he sits across from me. I can tell that he feels embarrassed or maybe a little shame. I normalize the situation and state that I'm grateful to share a meal with them. Mom points to the corner and says, Si gustas, allá dan platos para llevar. If you'd like, over there, you can get a plate to go. I politely say thank you, and as we finish our meal, the volunteers begin to clean up, a sign that it is time to go. As we walk out, I see V smile as he halfway puts on a knitted sky blue beanie cap that a volunteer gave him. He is happy. During the walk back home, we talk about troqueando. We smile and laugh the whole way back. I say goodbye, and the session is over. I walk to the car and I begin to wonder, tonight, who was the real counselor? So that's my short story, A Cristo Rey.
And that one, so many layers, so many layers. And I remember, when it was a little bit more fresh off the fingertips and you had written it out and sent it over, and there was a tenderness about it. And there were a whole lot of layers to unpack about who and what men are supposed to be, for starters, is what resonated with me in that particular point, because we don't have a whole lot of documented, written about stories like that. And they exist every damn day. They exist in our families, in our homes, with our partners, with our parents. Sometimes, they do exist. And so that stood out to me. But there were all these like little layers on top of that, right? Like the fact that you were gonna go have food with this familia and you didn't know where that story was gonna take you. And the way that all played out, and that closing line, I think, is that it's like that exclamation point that has like more of a pause of emphasis, like an invitation for reflection from the folks who get to experience your poem. So if you want to talk a little bit more, I know you can't disclose like the whole background, but you come across stories like this every day, right? Like this is the nature of your work. It's like things take a turn in a poetic way, even as you're going about figuring out where you fit in to the type of work you do. And then there's this human element to it.
Yeah, and it's a trip because they tell you not to be connected, right? And when you do this type of work, Western mentality is that you have to put boundaries and that you have to be disconnected and you can't feel that connection, right? That's bad. That's what when you're taught when you go to school. Um, and so it's like from a collective approach, from our cultural approach, we don't. That's the complete opposite. Like we're a connected people. Um, and so yeah, I've had to transform my frame of thought, my frame of how I do mental health therapy, and it's been a little challenge, right? Because I've had people that have helped me along the way, but I can't say that I've had one specific mentor. One, because there's not a lot of male or female therapists. Um, And then the other piece is that ones that have reached that level, sometimes they've been assimilated, right? They've acculturated and they've assimilated their practice. So then, it's been tough. So I've had to reflect on the experiences I've had within community, within working at like Moxa, within being surrounded by other people such as yourself and Carla and the Castro family and other Ana Soto, people that are that think the same way and how they provide support to our community. Um, so yeah, this was just one that really like hit because maybe because I worked with this kid for such a long time, his whole middle school, and when I met him, I couldn't even get him to focus for 2 seconds to have a conversation. Like he was just I don't really diagnose a lot of kids with ADHD because a lot of times their symptoms are, it's related to trauma. And it's like ADHD is the easy route for people to diagnose, therapists or, whether they go to their primary care providers. I don't like primary care provider diagnosis because that's not their specialty. Although they can do it, that's not their specialty. I recommend that people go to a specialist, like a psychiatrist, if they're, looking into getting ADHD diagnosed and getting med support versus going with a primary care physician. So, but with this kid, definitely, this was one of those rare instances where it was like, yeah, this is ADHD. And so where this person was in sixth grade compared to eighth grade, and this story is taking place when he's in eighth grade, um,
Hmm.
there's just been so much growth. But then the schools and community, like he'd get kicked out of the library, right? The one good thing that for the summertime in that neighborhood, for those that know the Willow Street neighborhood,
La
it's
biblioteca.
it's tough. And because of his ADHD, he got kicked out of the library, the one place where he could go get internet and hang out and try to stay out of trouble. Um, yeah, it was really tough. It was a tough situation for this person and this young man and family. And so a lot of times I would try to play that role of trying to be the emotional support of um, making him feel good, making him feel valid, making him feel self-worth. And it's difficult, right? And so I'm walking these two paths, and I'm trying to use my cultural perspective versus the what they teach you in school.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I throw that out the window, and I go with what I feel is the correct way for healing. And I I was thinking we were going to a taquero, to be honest, on this situation. And And then I thought, oh, well, maybe it's a church where they do meals sometimes. You know how some church do fundraisers,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're going in, and then all of a sudden, I understood um, why she wanted to go for a walk was, well, because they didn't have food at home, and then I was trying to schedule an appointment during the time when that's when they would go down there, and I think it took 2-3 years, for her to feel the confianza to be able to say Salvador is not going to judge us, and we're going to come here, and um, yeah, it was just the reminder. It was a reminder. It was just and that was what I was thinking, right? Who's the counselor tonight? Like I didn't teach you anything tonight. You taught me tonight. You reminded me. Um, and so, yeah, it was just a powerful, right, experience moment. And for me, I had to write it out. I had to write it out. Uh, and that's all it was. It's just that feeling that I have inside. I'll just try to write. And I haven't really read these out loud, really, just like to myself at home. But one time they did a open, what do they call them? The poetry slams.
The poetry
And
open mic. Yeah.
so I went and participated in that one time, and then I was just like, no, never again. Because I shared a deep poem, and I felt like it was, it was from here,
Yeah.
but because it was a competition, this guy who wrote a poem about Pikachu won. And it was like, I was just like, nah, I'm not trying to get my poem scored, or that's
Right.
not the type of poems that I do. So, but yeah, I really was thinking, well, what's the third thing I could share tonight? And then I remembered the story I wrote, and I was just like, you know what? I need to read this out loud, because it's not just about poetry; it's about just expression, and that could be in a journal. It could be written. It could be writing a song, a corrido, a canción. Like some people have done that, and I've been really impressed. Um, and so, like we said, the painting, the dancing, that there's ways that we express ourselves. And so, yeah, I really want to thank you for giving me the chance to express myself tonight.
I'm thankful for that. And I think, I don't know if it's an accident, but I know when I'm talking about my poetry and I just saw you do it too, it's like not quite in your throat, not quite in your heart, but some this middle space when people are talking about how we write. It's always like we're grabbing it from here. And it's
Yeah,
like that combination of voice, but also of heart. And
yeah,
right, like right there. And I've done it before and I just saw you do it. And so I wanted to just point that out, not to put you on the spot with a blush action or anything like that, but just the way we approach what writing means to us. And that a lot of times we're writing to write. And I don't mean write, but like to correct. And we're not going to fix. But there's some recalibration that happens by being able to combine what we have, right? Which is that voice and that heart. And you're right. Sometimes it looks like a poem. Sometimes it looks like danza. Sometimes it looks like going to dinner with the family, outside of your comfort zone and learning some lessons in life and learning with that lens of poetry in our everyday. And so truly thank you. I know you looks like you stayed at work a little bit longer to play along here. And part of why I'm doing this and trying to hit up a few other folks throughout the month, and we'll see where it goes, is to connect, right? Connect that piece of ourselves in a way that's kind of like an ofrenda, this little offering out into the world, and maybe that will help someone else catch a little bit of a spark or that little nudge of encouragement to be like, yeah, dale. Your writing, does it have to be good by someone else's standards? No. What makes you a writer is you. You get to decide and you know what that looks like. And so I thought, what a better way to kick off this little series of mine, if you want to call it that. I don't think I could have picked a better person. And I think the universe kind of just made it work this way. And so I'm looking forward to more of your writing. I know you send them every so often. No pressure. You have been published before. And, it's not your main jam, but definitely those little ofrendas just to remind people out in the world. that we've got this collective healing, and that this is one of the ways that it's a part of who we are. So thank you. I don't know if you want to give folks a final shout out to find you past this little blurb, or if you're like, if you find me, you find me. Yeah, I still
No, yeah, it's
go.
no, just like again, just thank you very much. Nice, good little break from the flow of regular daily life to be able to share, and so yeah, I appreciate it. I encourage people to do it, right? To express yourself. Don't hold it in. It is healing. It is liberating. It's all that and so much more. So, like I said, I'm not a poet. I'm not an author. I'm just a person that writes and expresses themselves. And so, yeah, anybody can do that. So, with that, gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias,
We'll
Rosana.
catch you in the next one. Folks, you know where to find me anyways, and if you don't, just Google it. You'll figure it out. Pero ahí está. We'll see who wants to play along next. Have a good one.
Be like, tag, you're it.
Tag. Yeah. You
All
got
right.
plenty. Bye.
Bye.